Welcome back to the Hybrid Athlete Dad Podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the secrets to staying fit when parenting kids. As most of you know, if you've listened to the podcast before, or if you're just tuning in, I have a 15-month-old daughter, and my goal is to stay fit while also raising my daughter, where I don't necessarily go out and have a dad bod or anything like that. I want to be that role model for her. But before I dive into the episode and talk about the secrets to staying fit when parenting kids, just want to go over some things that are going on in my life, and I really like to do this on each episode. Right now, I'm currently training for a marathon. We're about 10 days out from that marathon. And right now, I'm in the taper phase, which is it's been interesting when you've been running for so much and putting in so many miles per week to now doing a taper. It's the first time I've ever experienced it. I don't even know I was supposed to taper up until maybe a few weeks ago when my wife and my parents asked me, "Are you going to taper?" And I was like, what does that even mean? So that was my knowledge of running a marathon. I was like, I'm just going to run so many miles each week, and then I'm going to go run a marathon. Not realizing that my body could use some of that rest before going out there and running that marathon. I ended up doing a long run, a 20-mile run, and that was good. I mean, that was definitely a little bit of a struggle those last 6 miles on that run, where my legs just feel like they're filled up with concrete, but made it through that run. About 10.5-minute miles. The goal is to be a little bit quicker than that when I'm running the actual race, but I don't want to be running an entire marathon pace for 20 miles before I actually run the marathon. Got that knocked out of the way. It was pretty interesting running it. So initially I was going to do a couple of different basically spots where I was going to run. I ended up doing 11 loops in a neighborhood right next to me, and that each loop is about 1 mile. So got 11 miles through that and then ran off and did another route. Basically ran about 4.5 miles out, 4.5 miles back, and completed the 20 miles. Overall, body's feeling pretty good. I'm still going to the gym right now 4 days a week and still doing basically strength training on top of doing this cardio, not doing any biking or swimming. When I start training for my half Ironman that I'm going to be doing, I'll be doing more biking and swimming incorporated and maybe a little bit less running. A little bit of knee pain in my right knee. It's funny, I had the same exact pain in my left knee. It ended up going away. It's in my right knee. It's kind of lingering a little bit, but I'm so close to the marathon. I'm not going to drop out of it or anything like that. I'm just going to go ahead and run it and then maybe I don't know if I'll stop running completely, but just cut back on how many miles I was running per week, because I gave myself about 8 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks to really train for this marathon and ramp up my mileage. So I was running basically twice as many miles per week as I had been doing previously. So I think that's attributed to it a little bit. I think it's more just inflammation or tendonitis. But again, it's weird. It comes like when I'm sitting here recording this podcast interview, I don't feel it. But if I stand and I go to move, that's when I feel it. When I'm out running, say 8 miles, and I'm going out there and doing it, I'll feel it for the first mile or two, and then it'll go away. So it's not that big of an issue when I am running. It's more when I'm just sitting still and not moving. So it's definitely been a little bit of an interesting injury per se, but again, I'm not going to have it checked out. I'm just going to run through it. I'm so close to being able to finish this marathon and doing all this training. So that's really what I have going on. Definitely a little bit intimidating. The first one running the 26.2, the first being during my training was running that 20. And I just felt as though, like, yeah, my legs are heavy, but I could probably push myself through and finish off this marathon. And for those listening, you've heard me say it again. And for those new, the goal is just to run the entire marathon, not necessarily care about how fast I am, but I just want to finish the marathon running. I don't want to have to stop other than if I'm stopping to go to the bathroom or grab a cup of water from an aid station or whatever that may be. I want to make sure that I'm running the entire way and that I don't have to walk any bit of this marathon. And that's my goal going in. So hopefully I'll be able to provide everyone listening some updates in a few weeks on how that went and how the finish went with the marathon. So looking forward to that. But now let's dive into the episode of the secrets to staying fit when parenting kids. I think it's kind of interesting, or I think it's funny to me where I put the secrets to staying fit. There's no real secrets out there. It's more or less me sharing my experience with you of trying to stay fit. I wouldn't say that there's necessarily any secrets. There's not like a special drug that you can take or an amazing workout that you can do. It's really just what I'm going to go over and what has really worked for me. Now, before I get into the strength training and the cardio aspect of it, I want to get into the nutrition aspect of staying fit. I feel as though it's been really beneficial for me to focus on what I'm putting into my body. I always had the notion that because I'm working out, I don't necessarily have to care so much about what I'm eating. And then as I started to get a little bit older, started to put a little bit more weight on, I believe I was at the peak, I was probably about 185, where now I weigh 170, so I ended up dropping about 15 pounds, give or take. It fluctuates on any given day. But the nutrition aspect to staying fit is one of the most important aspects. And I would say probably the most important aspect is making sure that you're getting enough protein in per day. And what I recommend for the protein intake is getting 1 gram of protein in per day per your body weight. So if I weigh 170 pounds, my goal is to take in 170 grams of protein per day. And I remember back in December of 23 when I first came across learning about how much protein I should be having. And that's because I was working with a nutritionist. And our goal at the time was to get 100 grams of protein in per day. And for me, that was so much protein. And it can definitely seem overwhelming. It's how am I going to get this protein in? But over time, you start to figure out different meals. Maybe I have ground beef and steak and chicken in dinner. Maybe I have a protein shake. Maybe I have I make protein based waffles or pancakes, whatever that may be. You start to figure it out over time. But that was really important for me because when you have a ton of protein, you're not as hungry and it helps to build and keep your muscle on. So when it came to tracking this protein goal that I had, I was using MyFitnessPal, and I recommend paying for the premium version. I was using an app for a long time that would give me how much protein I have per day, but I find MyFitnessPal, it's nice and easy. I can go on, I can save the meals that I have, and I have pretty much similar meals, especially Monday through Friday. I can scan barcodes. The majority of barcodes that I scan are going to pop up in the app. And what I like about MyFitnessPal is not only can I track my protein, but I can also track my carbs and fats. So now you're looking at your macros, the big three, your carbs, fats, and your proteins. And then you can put in, for me, I put in my height, I put in my weight, and then you can put in, are you active? Are you very active, moderately active, non-active at all? And MyFitnessPal will pump out how many calories you should be having per day. So like I mentioned, I weigh 170. I didn't want to lose any more weight. I'm not in bulking right now where I'm trying to gain weight. So for me, I have to get in about 3,100 calories per day. And that also seems like a lot. But again, over time, you start to figure out and build your own schedule. So that's really nice about using the app is you can put your height, your weight, how active you are, and it'll give you how many calories. But what I found most beneficial from using the app is I thought I was getting a lot of protein in per day. So early on, when I was working with a nutritionist, the goal was 100 grams of protein in per day, like I mentioned. And I'd be getting in 50 to 75 grams of protein in per day, realizing I had to bump that up. I believe right now I'm at 400 grams of carbs, 450 maybe grams of carbs a day. I'm at 60 grams or 70 grams of fat that I'm looking to get in per day. And then I'm looking to, again, get in 170 grams of protein. Honestly, I got about 200 grams of protein in per day. Sometimes it might be a little less than 170, but on average, it's about 200. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm pretty standard with what I eat on a consistent basis. But I realized I was getting too much fat in my daily food that I was eating. And then I was getting too little carbs for my training schedule. So I just had to rework, okay, how can I cut out some fats? And then it's almost like this jigsaw puzzle that you're trying to play. To give you an example, I'll have 6 to 8 ounces of chicken breast. I'll throw it in a crock pot of chicken breast, and then I'll basically let that cook for 4 or 5 hours, and I'll have that shredded chicken. And that shredded chicken, where it's 6 to 8 ounces, that might only be 230 calories for me, but it's also 30 to 40 grams of protein. So I'm getting a lot of protein in it, but I'm not getting a lot of calories. Where I can go through and I can have a serving of peanut butter, which is on average about 32 grams of peanut butter, where you're looking at about 200 calories and 16 grams of fat, and you might get 8 grams of protein. I don't think that there's any carbs in there. Hopefully I haven't misspoke, but there might not be any carbs in there. But so you can see it's almost like this puzzle where how can I get more protein but not have as much fat while also having enough carbs? And carbs can come from obviously your breads, it can come through your fruits and vegetables. But then again, if you have an apple or you have a banana, that might be a lot of carbs, or 30 to 40, 50 grams of carbs, but it's only 100 calories. So it's always playing this game that's back and forth. And I find that having MyFitnessPal has been really beneficial for me for tracking everything. And while I'm on the subject, what I recommend for bread is I really like Dave's Killer. So I'll use their hamburger. I don't know. Yeah, the hamburger buns. I don't know if they have hot dog buns, but I'll use their hamburger buns if I'm making hamburgers. I really like their bagels. They have English muffins. It's a really good, high quality brand of protein if you're looking to get some carbs in there. I also recommend sourdough. I like having sourdough. I like putting eggs on sourdough. Sometimes I like to just have a couple pieces of sourdough bread, and I'll put some Kerrygold butter on it. For sourdough, what I like to do is there's one particular place near me that sells this. It's like the San Francisco sourdough. It's really good, but the problem is it's at like a local farm stand, and sometimes they don't have it in stock, so I'm having to go to the grocery store and buy sourdough. And really, what I'm looking for is how many ingredients is in the sourdough that I'm buying at the store. Most of the time, it might just be like wheat, flour, salt, water. Pretty standard, maybe 3 or 4 ingredients in the sourdough. Or sometimes I'll look at sourdough and there'll be like 10 to 15 ingredients. Well, I'm going to go with the sourdough that has 3 or 4 ingredients over the sourdough that has 10 to 15 ingredients. And that really brings me into my next point of really eating less processed food. And for me, it's eating more grass-fed and pasture-raised meat. And what's nice is that where I live in New York, there's a lot of local farms near me. So I'm able to go, and I go once a month, and I'll buy grass-fed, pasture-raised chicken. So I'll buy chicken breasts, and I'll keep them in my freezer. I take them out every Sunday night. I'll buy hamburgers. I'll buy steaks. I'll buy ground beef. Sometimes I buy bacon. That can be a little bit pricey. For a pound of bacon, it's about $16. Where if you go to the grocery store and you buy a pound of bacon, you're looking at about like $6 to $8. So that's definitely a lot more expensive, and I don't necessarily want it all the time. When I'm using the bacon, it's about 2 strips. There's like 80 calories, so I'm not getting a ton of calories in it. Other than bacon just tastes good, but I'm trying to eat less processed food. So instead of eating like Cheez-Its or chips or processed cereals, and if I do decide I'm going to go down that route and I want to have chips or crackers or whatever that may be, I want to stick with brands that I know are good. So as an example, I like to have hummus. And when I'm having hummus, I'll have pita chips with it. And I believe I use a company called Simple Mills. And yes, it's going to be a little bit more expensive than if you're going out there and buying Wheat Thins, but it's going to be better quality for you. Or you can go and buy Crunch Masters, another type of cracker that I like to have with my hummus. And you start to really just look at the ingredients, like what's going into it, what am I actually being fed. When it comes to drinks, does it have Red 40 in it? That's not going to be good for you. And again, these are things that I learned over time, really by working with my nutritionist. And I would highly recommend, if you're someone out there and you're like, how can I fix my diet? My nutritionist was very good to work with, and I probably worked with her for about 3 or 4 months before I felt as though I had a really comfortable grasp of everything, and I didn't necessarily need to work with her anymore. I had my routine down. I pretty much eat the same foods Monday through Friday, and really on pretty much Monday or on Saturday and Sunday outside of dinner, I'll maybe mix it up. Maybe I'll go out and have a bite to eat. I like to keep it very consistent. And what I mentioned before is I dropped initially from switching up my diet and like I mentioned before, focusing on high protein and carbs and fats and seeing how much I'm getting in and trying to eat better quality of food. I dropped from 185 to 175 in the first 2 months, and then since then I've dropped another 5 pounds. But it's been probably 6 months since then, so a little bit less than a pound a month. And that goes back to now I know I have to get in 3,100 calories per day, so that's my goal. And I feel very consistent at that 170 weight, knowing I have to get in 3,100 calories per day. So that's really the big aspect when it comes to staying fit when parenting kids is just making sure you're getting your proteins in, you're tracking your carbs, you're tracking your fats, you're eating good quality foods, you're not just buying the cheapest option if you can afford it, and that you're making sure you're putting in good foods into your body. And I'm coming from a person where this time last year, I don't think I was eating really any fruits and vegetables with my meals, and now I'm consistently having them with my meals. And then you just have to find out what you like. Okay, I like apples, I like bananas, I like blueberries and strawberries and spinach. And then you just have to make an effort to be consistent with it and just keep adding it into your diet. But again, that's quote unquote the first secret to staying fit is focusing on the nutrition aspect of it. And I could go back 10 years of working out and trying to better myself. I wish I had focused on nutrition first and got that dial in and got that down, because there's just so many benefits that you get focusing on the nutrition aspect of it. So once you go through that process and you start to work it down, and again, before I hop into the next section of today's episode, I don't want you to go through and do a 180 on your diet. Just do it over time, depending on what you're looking to do. Maybe it's you're cutting off alcohol. That's something for me where I don't drink. I just never really enjoy the feeling of it. I never enjoy the taste of it. So that's not something I have to worry about. But I do know that there are people out there that like to have a few drinks per week, and just cutting that out or limiting yourself can help you stay more fit. Maybe it's having more water intake and drinking less soda. And again, it doesn't have to necessarily be you're limiting yourself and you're cutting it off 100% completely, because at the end of the day, you still want to enjoy the food you're eating. You still want to be able to live. And I thought my nutritionist had said it best, where this isn't a diet, this is just a lifestyle change. So instead of maybe going out and having a soda 3 to 4 times a week, maybe you're having it once a week. And you're just making those changes where you're still able to enjoy yourself, but you're doing it in moderation instead of going out there and doing it all the time. So that's what I wanted to harp on when it comes to really, again, quote unquote, the first secret and the nutrition aspect of staying fit when you're parenting your kids. Now, the next section I want to get into, and really will end the podcast on, but is you have the nutrition down. Now it's the working out aspect of it, and it's the cardio aspect of it. Early on when I was working out, I didn't really do too much cardio. I'd be walking on the treadmill for 20 minutes. And like I mentioned in other episodes before, but working with my nutritionist, she got me into running, and then that led me to this hybrid athlete lifestyle where I'm doing strength training and doing the cardio. But for someone out there that's starting off for the first time, and I don't necessarily want you to overwhelm yourself, but what I would recommend would be doing 3 strength training sessions per day, and then gradually introducing the cardio aspect of it as well. Or if you're someone that has been going to the gym, I would recommend doing 3 strength training sessions per day, and I would do 3 cardio sessions per day. That way you're not overwhelming yourself. So it could be Monday, Wednesday, Friday that you do it, and maybe cardio Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or you do Monday, Wednesday, Friday work strength training, and then you do Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well on that cardio, you want to make sure you're getting at least 3 strength training days in and then 3 cardio days in as well. My typical schedule is I'm strength training 5 days a week and I'm doing cardio 6 days a week and using Sunday as a full rest day. Now the way that my schedule looks, I'm doing 4 strength training sessions because of the marathon. I'm doing 4 strength training sessions. I'm doing 5 days running, and then I have Sunday off, but I'm not running on Thursdays as well. So, and I'm not strength training on Fridays, which I had been doing there, where I'm doing a long run on Friday. I thought about going to the gym in the morning and then coming back and doing a long run. I think it's just going to be, I think it would have been too much to do all at once. So I pulled it back a little bit. So now again, I'm just doing 4 strength training sessions and 5 cardio sessions, where I had been doing 5 strength training and 6 cardio. And what I mean by 6 is I was doing 3 days of running, and on the other days I was swimming and I was biking. So it wasn't like I was running the 6 days a week. I was just doing the running 3 days a week, where now I bumped it up to 5 days a week. And when it comes to strength training, you just want to make sure that you're training pretty much every sort of body part. So as an example, on Mondays, you could do back, shoulders, and triceps. On Wednesday, you could do legs. So you want to make sure you're hitting the quads, the hamstrings, the calves, and just making sure you're doing a good leg workout. And then on Fridays, you could be doing chest and biceps. So however you want to structure it. And then you have your cardio. Maybe you do 3 miles 2 days a week and 5 miles 1 day a week. And that's how I like to structure my runs, where I'm pretty consistent running about 4 to 5 miles, and then I'll have one long run in during the week. And that's how I like to set it up for myself. And now I wouldn't say it's a secret, but like I mentioned before, I have a 15-month-old daughter, and I don't want to necessarily be working out when she's awake, and then also having a job where I can't be working out during the middle of the day. I have to be working my job. So what that entails, and the sacrifice that you have to make, and it's really just not making any excuses on why you can't work out. It's just figuring out and making the time that works best for you. So for me, I know that our gym opens up at 5:30 in the morning. So I get up at 4:50 in the morning. I yogurt, I get ready, and I go to the gym. I leave my house by 5:20. I'm at the gym 5:30, and I'm working out. I'll typically work out till 6:50. At that point, I'm done with my workout. I'll come home, get home about 7, and that's when our daughter's waking up. That's when I have a little bit bigger of a breakfast, feed my daughter breakfast, get in the car, drop her off at daycare about 8:15, come home, and then now I'm doing that cardio session. And that's the sacrifices that I have to make, where, yeah, I want to do the cardio session later in the day after work. So I have this wide gap in between me working out and doing strength training and then me doing running. And it's probably not the best. I probably wouldn't recommend it, but that's what works best for me in my schedule, is doing the strength training and then doing this cardio just a few hours apart, where again, you would probably want a full day in between, but I have to do that for me and my schedule. So if you're someone thinking to yourself, okay, what works best for me? You just have to figure out where you're going to put it in your schedule, so that way you can continue to do the strength training and then the cardio or endurance training on top of it. Like another example for me, when it comes to this marathon training, it's instead of doing 5 days of strength training, it's doing 4 days of strength training, where I had been doing long runs on Saturday mornings, where now I switched up and I do long runs earlier on Friday mornings, where I still run on Saturday, but instead of going off and doing a 20-mile run, I'm doing a 5-mile run or a 4-mile run, where it's definitely not the easiest getting up and doing 20 miles at 4:15 on a Friday morning to make sure that I can make it back in time for my daughter. But I know that that's probably going to drain me for quite a while, where I'd rather do that on Friday and still be able to work, where I'm just sitting down at my desk, where on Saturdays, I get up and I go do 4 miles and I'm back quickly and I feel energized and I'm still good. I'm not walking around like a zombie and exhausted, which a 20-mile run can definitely do it to you. So it was reworking my schedule to make sure that I'm being able to still go out there and do this training. So, really, when it comes to staying fit when parenting your kids, it's the nutrition aspect is just vitally important of getting that down. And then it's carving out the time to do a strength and cardio session and figuring out what works best for you. Is it after the kids go to bed? Is it before work? Do you have to get up earlier? I used to go to the gym at 7 and then I started to gradually cut it back. And then now, I used to wake up at 6:30 and then now waking up at 4:50, not really the best time to wake up so early in the morning, but I know that that's the time that I have to get up if I want to be here for my daughter, if I want to be here when she's awake. That's a sacrifice that I have to make. And on the back end, it's just going to bed earlier instead of going to bed at 10:30. Now I'm lights out by 9:30 every night, and that typically gives me enough time to sleep and wake up feeling refreshed for the next morning. And overall, just find a routine that works best for you and stick with it. I know I talked about my routine and what works best for me. Maybe that doesn't necessarily work for you, but just find something, stick with it, give it time, and I guarantee you, if you do it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you're going to build that habit, and then that's really what it takes to stay fit when you're parenting kids. And as I quoted before, or Eric quoted before, there's really no secrets. It's just the nutrition aspect of it. It's doing the workout and it's doing the cardio sessions. So I hope everyone listening enjoyed today's episode. I would really appreciate it if you could go on iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. I'd love to enjoy your comments, hear about how you like the show, what you would want me to talk about. Until next time, thanks everyone for tuning in.